la pregunta número uno. ¿Qué es lo que está pasando con estas reacciones a los videos de Lara en YouTube? Question.
Hello again, everybody. Great to talk to you again. Thank you so much, Yvonne and Laura Fabian America, for inviting me to speak with you again. As we know, us Laura fans love to talk Laura and share our experiences. And that's the great thing about YouTube, is that we share even more using this particular method of communication. I was watching a lot more Laura videos yesterday, and they were like with some reviewers who I've never seen their reaction videos before. So more and more people are reacting to Laura than ever did before, and that's great. One of the interesting things also is that we're talking about some people who you would never expect to watch a Laura video, or to have people suggest to them that they watch a Laura video. Let's say these people are more into rap music and things of that nature, and you could tell that that's what they are, and yet they watch it and they are completely mesmerized by Laura's power, her passion, her clarity, her vocal range, and completely overwhelmed by the fanaticism of her fans. Because not only when they watch Laura and they're blown away by their performance, is that then they all of a sudden start getting all the messages saying, you think that one was good. I suggest you watch this one, this one, this one, and this one. Or else they say, yeah, that was good. However, that was not the best performance of Je suis malade that you could have seen. You should go to this particular one from Laura with Love on this date. And when there's so much going back and forth, and we're basically, as I mentioned, overwhelming these reviewers with requests to see, their reaction to Laura videos. That's giving Laura exposure that she never had before. Unlike so many of the other huge female stars out there, male stars as well, and bands, is that Laura is not a radio-based talent, or at least certainly not in the majority of the world. She comes out with a record, you don't end up hearing it being played on the radio here in North America. So the only exposure that Laura gets in North America is when she does her concerts, and when she puts out her CDs, her albums, that sort of thing, and by word of mouth. Now, the word of mouth method is the most powerful method for Laura's communication, for people to be able to see her and experience her for the very first time. And now it's so entertaining to watch these people be entertained by Laura. And quite frankly, it's like watching a blind person. All of a sudden, they can see for the very first time. And I just love that kind of experience. I love to share that kind of experience with other people as well. And let's keep on doing more of that.
YouTube. Pregunta número 2. Después de 20 años de esos videos que están haciendo revolución en YouTube, en la última entrevista, Víctor, tú dijiste que los cambios de estilo de Lara en sus álbumes quizás fueron las razones por las que mucha gente dejó de seguirla. ¿Realmente piensas que esto pasó? En mi manera personal, yo pienso que a Lara la hicieron a un lado del mercado de la música por razones que no sé y no sabemos. ¿Qué piensas de esto? Question.
I think there are a number of reasons why Laura is not as popular worldwide as she should be. Keeping in mind that us Laura fans know just exactly how she is probably the greatest talent ever. But there are things throughout her career that, in my opinion, have kind of hindered that. Number one, the switching back and forth between languages and styles, I believe, held her back in terms of her ongoing success. I understand fully the motivation for her doing that. However, when your greatest, let's say, most popular group of fans is in France, and maybe Quebec and other French speaking areas, when your performing French. They're used to it. They're growing more accustomed to you. Not only are you developing your fan base, but you're increasing the fan base and increasing their loyalty by sticking to French. Then all of a sudden you go English. A lot of the people who were French basically took the unreasonable attitude that, well, you're a traitor. How dare you all of a sudden start singing English now? Yeah, I know the tune is catchy and things of that nature, and there's some other songs in there that are really wonderful and that sort of thing. However, you're going to lose a certain number of people. But then you're gaining popularity in the United States and in Canada and other English-speaking countries with an English album for the first time. Very catchy dance tune, I Will Love Again, and then a lot of other great songs on there. However, then from there, now that you've built an audience, all of a sudden you switch back to French. Now, if you thought that you would lose French fans by going English, believe me, you would lose many more English fans by going back to French. So people all of a sudden said, this is great, this is catchy, I can't wait to hear the next thing that she comes out with. But then it's in French. They're kind of like, I'm not interested in French. I don't understand French. The songs, whatever songs may be nice, but I was used to this catchy dance tune, and all of a sudden you go to a completely different language, a completely different style of music. I've lost interest with you, and I'm just going to stick with the people that I know that I'm more comfortable with. And then later on, so of course the French people are happy that she's finally come back, and then later on she does another English album and goes back in that direction. So the back and forth, you are going to, because of the lack of consistency, you are going to lose some loyalty from people out there. So I still think that that's a very significant reason. Another significant reason is that back in the 1990s and the 2000s, there were a lot of female singing stars, and they really wrote and performed popular music in English, by the way. So you ended up being successful in the U.S. market. That's a market of 300, back then, 300 million people thereabouts. But in my opinion, those songs were what I call cookie cutter songs. They were there, strictly made, easily made, and were very popular, and the people enjoyed them. Laura, it was different. Just like when, as I mentioned before, when she was switching back and forth. When she was switching back and forth, that was all Laura's decision to do that. She wanted to explore places that she's never been to before musically. Try different styles, work with different languages to have a broader appeal. Not necessarily huge, gigantic appeal with one particular group of people, but a smaller but more broad appeal with her fans. And she had a tremendous amount of integrity. She decided, this is the music that I want to make. Not necessarily the music that I want to sell 1 million records, but a music that I, as an artist, want to make. And so she had that level of integrity that, in my opinion, other artists did not particularly have or desire, but that still did affect her in terms of her popularity. And also, when you're thinking about the rest of the world, you can imagine they're thinking, well, who needs another Celine Dion? Who needs another person with that kind of a powerful belting voice? Besides which, this person, Laura, well, sure, she belts, but she belts in French or Italian sort of thing. So you ended up losing, I think you lost a lot of potential people that way. And face it, the U.S. market is the power market when it comes to music. I live in Canada, just north of that largest market in the world. There are a tremendous number of Canadian singers who have immense talent. Some of them were successful down there in the U.S., but a lot of them weren't. A lot of them had a particular style that was very popular in Canada, but did not translate as well to the American market. These artists did not say, well, you know what, I'm going to have to throw out the music that I love to make in order to try to become more popular in the U.S. They didn't say that. They said, I'm going to be satisfied with the Canadian market and being popular in Canada, because this is the music that is me. And if it means that I'm only appealing to a smaller group of people, then so be it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to try to break into the U.S. market. And you have to admire people like that, people like Laura, people who have dealing with smaller markets, who basically say, my passion is to do the kind of music that I want to make, and I don't care if it doesn't have as broad an appeal as down there in the United States. So once again, kudos to Laura for that. But to your point, Yvonne, about the there being a concerted effort to hold Laura back, I agree. I agree completely with that. It's not just a case where listeners may not be as favorably inclined for Laura's style of singing. You know that's true, right? That I think that like a lot of some struggles of popularity in France was because back then French people were used to more, I think, demure type of singers, as opposed to a power belting singer like Laura. And in fact, I've seen some videos where a person was reviewing Laura in one of these reaction videos, and he specifically said about how his parents or his father or whatever, and the French in general, were not used to power belting singers like Laura, and therefore didn't give her the attention she deserved. Wouldn't even listen to her, or if they did listen to her, didn't like it because of the belting aspect of things. So sure, there's that aspect of it. But I think that the media were kind of holding her back. The fact that she was flipping back and forth between genres, I think that caused a certain confusion with media as well. They didn't know exactly what category to slot her into. Saying, well, she's a jazz singer, she's a blues singer, she's a rock singer. They couldn't quite say that with her because, once again, different languages, different styles of singing. But the best example, Yvonne, of what you were talking about was the Sanremo Music Festival in Italy in 2015. There, Laura performed an amazing song, Voce, which she was doing as a tribute to her mother. And it was a beautiful song. I know she sang another song as well, but she did this beautiful song, Voce, in tribute to her mother. Didn't get the response that you would think that an amazing performance like that would receive. It's a song in Italian for her Italian mother, yet it didn't receive the accolades that it should have received. And in fact, the Italian media were essentially treating her as a non-Italian. And I know they would treat me the same way because I'm only half Italian, therefore they wouldn't even consider me to be slightly Italian. They called, basically when she was left the competition, was sort of like, so much for those those half Italian or non-Italian singers. It's ridiculous. But it was an Italian festival, but she wasn't Italian enough. And that kind of prejudice, that kind of bigotry held her back. And bigotry of that type and other types do hold back a lot of artists who were very deserving. The wonderful thing about Laura, well, one of many wonderful things, but she knew what was going on with the movements behind the scenes to basically discourage people from voting for her in a competition. One of the things that she did at the end of the competition was that she responded in a letter to, I think it was a magazine, I'm not sure whether it was a magazine or a newspaper, and rather than be bitter about the experience, because she knew what was going on, but rather than have that affect her negatively, what she did was talk about the beauty of the experience, about the opportunity to sing this tribute to her mother, and the beauty of Italy and the excitement of the competition, things of that nature. She chose not to attack the people who were attacking her. She chose to be gracious, charming, loving, a great example of why she makes the music that she makes and why we love her the way we do. I do have a copy of that letter that she wrote. I will be submitting it to Laura Fabian America, so the rest of you can see that as well and understand just exactly um, what she felt, but what she was holding back as well, and the incredible beauty of her as a human being.
Pregunta número 3. Si tuvieras la oportunidad de recomendarle a Lara qué canciones grabar para su próximo álbum, ¿qué tipo de canciones le recomendarías?
That's an interesting question, and I interpret it two different ways. First of all, uh, I think that what Laura needs to do is to continue to write her own songs and perform her own songs more than anything else. She is a brilliant lyricist, composer, and songwriter, and we know that she is more inspired by her own music than she is when performing music by other people, even though she never holds back on any of her performances. I think the more that she can be inspired, but that we can inspire her, so that she inspires us with her music, the longer she can be writing her own music, the longer she will be inspired, and the more music that she will continue to make. So we keep up the love that we have for Laura and her music. She will continue to write that music, and she'll do that until she's in her 80s, which is good news for all of us. Second point, however, is that I interpreted the question as to what else would I like her to hear, or that I would like to hear specifically. Now, I will not say to do it in any specific language, though I do know, yes, Spanish speaking people would love more Spanish songs. Italians, I'm not sure about the Italians. I think the Italians would like more too, but quite frankly, I think that they haven't provided her with the support that they should have provided, but I love her Italian songs too. And I'm not going to say do more in English because she does a fair share in English as well. I don't want to put any restrictions on her. Laura, do whatever you want to do. However, yeah, there are songs out there that I've heard over the years, which so often in my mind I say, I would love to hear Laura's interpretation of that particular song. Now, she's done that with a lot of songs. A lot of songs from Broadway, a lot of songs, from stars that she admired growing up, Joni Mitchell, Barbara Streisand, people like that. And I was going through my list of songs to say, which one of these would I think Laura would do an amazing job in reinterpreting in her own fashion? And I had to stop after a while because I was just writing down too many potential songs. What I will do, if you're interested, I am going to send a list of those songs once again to Laura Fabian America, just to say, you know what, I'd love her to do these particular songs, so that you can pull up those songs yourself and watch the videos of them and say, nah, Victor, you're out of your mind. Or else listen to them and say, yes, I agree. And it might prompt you to listen to your own library of songs and say, you know what? Yes, I agree with those. I bet you she would do great on this particular song too. I'll just give you one example. Many of you know the song "Do I Love You" by Paul Anka, which goes way back to the '60s. Well, his daughter, Anthea Anka, sang that song together with Paul Anka and the Bee Gees. So basically it was the group of them singing "Do I Love You," and an incredibly gorgeous version of the song, which I could imagine Laura singing, and then with a few people, with some of her friends backing her up, would be absolutely astounding. So I listen to songs and I think about it in that fashion, whether she would just sing the song as the song was done originally, or whether she would switch it around and reinterpret it, make a fast song slow, a slow song fast. That once again would be up to her. So I'm going to send that along, and hopefully you guys will find that interesting. So like I said, number one, do your own thing. Number two, well, if you want to come up with some other ideas, here's some of them, and by all means, if you do any of them, send me the credit.
Pregunta número 4. ¿Algo más que quieres añadir? Thank you very much, Victor, and goodbye. Thanks again.
Final thoughts. Well, as everybody now knows, if you haven't already guessed, yes, I am addicted to Lara, and I would love Lara to come to Ontario, to come to Toronto specifically, and do a performance. So I'm always hoping for that to come sometime sooner rather than later. Laura, I don't expect you to jump in your car and drive 6.5 hours from Montreal to Toronto to come and visit your largest fan in Ontario. The invitation is there, though. If you want to pop over to Ontario and get a break, I'll take a chance on COVID. If you'll take a chance on COVID, the invitation is open. But since likely that's not going to happen, let's come up with a more reasonable request. So many of the messages that you send out periodically, either on your website or on YouTube, they're essentially done in French. And I am a complete Anglophone. I am ignorant of all other languages, much to my shame. For my Spanish friends, I apologize. For my French, Canadian friends and French friends, I apologize to you as well. So what I would love to see would be a bilingual message. As you yourself mentioned, when you decided that you wanted to break into the American market, so by coming to Canada also you're able to develop further your English skills and work on your English album and such, that there are, billions, back then you said 5 billion, billions of English-speaking people out there who do not speak French and would love to be able to hear the message in English as well. They would love to get the benefit of your kind words and your thoughts. So please try to do it bilingual whenever you can. And on behalf of my Spanish-speaking friends down there in Latin America and in the U.S. who speak Spanish, I know that they would love to have the odd message in Spanish as well. I know that you can converse in that language. So if you could do that, we would all appreciate it. And look at it this way. It's sort of like watching TV, and then they're watching a music video, and then you turn the volume down so you can't even hear it. But you can see the dancing and you can see the mouth moving, but you're not getting the full experience. So for us to get the full experience of your ongoing thoughts and messages, we need to have that volume turned up. We need to have it in something other than French. So there's that request. And finally, we all feel very blessed and thankful that you share your talent with us the way you do. Not just your talent, but your spirit and the wonderful person that you are. So thank you once again. Ti vogliamo bene. Nous t'aimons. Yes, I'm reading this. And nostras te amamos. Bye, everybody.